You're 72 years old. You've just been handed a surgical referral. Your doctor seems confident. The procedure sounds routine. You trust them. But what if the surgery your doctor is recommending, the one you're about to sign a consent form for, carries risks so serious, so specific to your age, that thousands of patients over 70 walk into operating rooms every year and come out worse than when they went in? What if nobody told you that after 70, your body responds to anesthesia, surgical trauma, and recovery in ways that can trigger a chain of complications? Complications that would have been minor at 50, but after 70 can become impossible to stop. This is not a video about fearing surgery. This is a video about knowing what to ask before you agree to it. Today, based on research from leading surgeons, geriatric specialists, and anesthesiologists, we're counting down 6 specific surgeries that doctors are now urgently flagging as high risk for patients over 70. Some of these are procedures recommended every single day in hospitals around the world, and one of them might be on your referral right now. Don't go anywhere. This could be the most important 8 minutes of your year. Surgery number 1. Elective spinal fusion surgery. Our first surgery is one of the most commonly recommended and most commonly regretted procedures for older adults, elective spinal fusion surgery. The logic sounds sensible. If vertebrae in your spine are grinding, compressing nerves, and causing chronic back pain, fuse them together. Stop the movement, stop the pain. Except, after 70, it is almost never that clean. Research published in the New England Journal of Medicine found that elderly patients undergoing complex spinal fusion face up to a 28% higher risk of serious post-surgical complications, including blood clots, hospital-acquired pneumonia, and post-operative delirium, compared to younger patients having the exact same surgery. But here's the part most patients don't hear until it's too late: adjacent segment disease. Fusing one section of your spine doesn't fix the rest of it. It redirects mechanical pressure onto the vertebrae directly above and below the fusion site. In an aging spine, where neighboring discs are often already weakened, this accelerated stress means many patients require a second spinal surgery within 5 years. You went in to fix one level, now 2 are failing. And then there's the anesthesia. Complex multi-level fusions can run for 4 to 8 hours under general anesthesia. For a body over 70, that's not a minor detail. That's a prolonged physiological stress event your heart, lungs, and brain all have to survive. Surgeons across the country are now increasingly recommending that older adults exhaust alternatives first: targeted physical therapy, epidural steroid injections, spinal cord stimulators, and structured pain management, which in many cases produce outcomes comparable to surgery with far less physiological cost. The question to demand from your surgeon is, what is my statistically expected quality of life improvement 1 year after this surgery, and what is the plan if the fusion doesn't work? Surgery number 2. Open heart bypass surgery, CABG. Coronary artery bypass grafting, known as CABG, is one of modern medicine's great achievements. When arteries supplying blood to the heart become critically blocked, surgeons reroute circulation around the blockage using a vessel harvested from elsewhere in your body. When it's necessary, it saves lives. But here's what changes dramatically after 70. The procedure requires cardiopulmonary bypass, a heart and lung machine that takes over circulation while surgeons operate on a stopped heart. In younger patients, this temporary takeover is manageable. In patients over 70, the interaction between this machine and an aging brain creates a risk most families are never warned about. It's called post-operative cognitive decline, and it is exactly what it sounds like. A landmark study in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society found that up to 40% of elderly bypass patients showed measurable signs of cognitive decline: memory loss, processing speed reduction, difficulty concentrating, 5 years after surgery, a rate dramatically higher than age-matched peers who manage their heart disease through medication alone. This doesn't mean you refuse bypass surgery if your cardiologist says your life depends on it. It means you ask, specifically and insistently, whether less invasive options are on the table. Catheter-based stenting, PCI procedures, or aggressive medication-based cardiac management, which in many cases produce outcomes comparable to surgery with far less physiological cost. Surgery number 3, carotid endarterectomy. The carotid arteries run along both sides of your neck, carrying oxygen-rich blood directly to your brain. When plaque accumulates inside them, a condition called carotid stenosis, the risk of stroke increases. Carotid endarterectomy surgically removes that plaque, and it genuinely works, but only under a very specific, very narrow set of conditions. Here's the detail that most patients over 70 are never clearly told. This surgery only provides a meaningful benefit if you are currently symptomatic, meaning you've already experienced a mini stroke or TIA, and your arteries blocked more than 70%. For asymptomatic patients, people with no stroke symptoms yet, regardless of their blockage percentage, a major 2022 review by the European Stroke Organization concluded that for most patients over 70, the surgery's benefit over modern medication is essentially negligible. The reason, the procedural risk of causing a stroke during surgery runs between 2 and 5%. For an asymptomatic patient, that risk may be higher than the natural risk of doing nothing and managing with medication. Modern statin therapy, blood pressure control, and antiplatelet medications have become so effective in managing carotid disease that many vascular surgeons are now firmly recommending a watchful, medication-first approach for low-symptom elderly patients. What you must ask is, am I symptomatic? What is my exact blockage percentage? And what does my individual surgical risk profile look like compared to medication management?
Before we get into the final 3 surgeries, and these next ones are genuinely the most surprising ones on the list, I want to take just a moment. If this video is giving you or someone you love information you've never heard from a doctor's office, please hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this reach more families who need to hear it. And if you're new here, subscribe and tap the bell. We cover real, research-based health information for older adults every single week, the kind of honest conversations that too often don't happen in a 15-minute doctor's appointment. And if you have a parent, a spouse, a sibling, or a friend over 70 who is facing a surgical decision right now, share this video directly with them. It might be the most valuable thing you do today. All right, back to the list. Surgery number 4. This one involves cancer, and it's the hardest conversation of all.
Surgery number 4, aggressive cancer debulking surgery. This is the hardest entry on our list because it involves cancer. When cancer spreads, particularly in the abdomen or pelvis, oncological surgeons sometimes recommend debulking surgery, physically removing as much tumor mass as possible, even when complete removal isn't achievable. The goal is to reduce the cancer's volume and improve the effectiveness of chemotherapy or radiation. The intention is sound, but for patients over 70, what the surgery actually costs the body often doesn't enter the conversation clearly enough. Major cancer surgeries, particularly for ovarian, pancreatic, colorectal, and gastric cancers, are among the most physiologically punishing operations in medicine. Recovery is brutal even for healthy 50-year-olds. In a 74-year-old with reduced organ reserve, the surgical stress can cascade. Wound infections, organ strain, nutritional collapse, pneumonia, prolonged ICU stays. Complications that can cut life shorter, not longer. Research from Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center found that elderly cancer surgery patients who showed signs of frailty, defined by reduced grip strength, unintentional weight loss, or slowed walking pace, had up to 3 times the 90-day mortality rate of non-frail patients of the exact same age. Same surgery, same cancer, 3 times the death rate, just because of frailty.
This is where goals of care conversations, honest, unflinching ones, become the most important medical discussions an older patient can have. For some, quality of life over the time remaining matters more than additional weeks purchased through a surgery that steals daily functioning, mental clarity, and the ability to be present with the people they love. There is no single right answer, but there is absolutely a right conversation, and you have the right to demand it. Surgery number 5, bariatric weight loss surgery. Obesity doesn't become less dangerous after 70. If anything, the joint pain, cardiovascular strain, and metabolic consequences of excess weight often intensify as we age. So it's not unusual for older patients to find themselves referred for bariatric surgery, procedures like gastric bypass or sleeve gastrectomy. And for younger patients, these surgeries can be genuinely transformative. But for patients over 70, the nutritional consequences of bariatric surgery are far more dangerous and far less reversible than most people are warned about. Here's the core problem. After bariatric surgery, your digestive system's ability to absorb critical nutrients, vitamin B12, iron, calcium, vitamin D, and zinc, drops significantly. In younger patients, aggressive supplementation can compensate for this. But in patients over 70, whose gut function, kidney filtration, and metabolic reserves are already reduced by age, malnutrition can take hold faster and with more devastating consequences. A study published in JAMA Surgery found that elderly bariatric patients experienced significantly higher rates of post-surgical malnutrition, sarcopenia, severe muscle loss, and bone fractures compared to younger cohorts. These weren't short-term complications, they compounded over time. And here's a critical behavioral layer most surgeons don't discuss: the sustained discipline required for bariatric success, rigid dietary changes, daily supplementation, regular monitoring visits, becomes genuinely harder to maintain as cognitive sharpness naturally declines with age. The good news? A new generation of GLP-1 receptor agonists, medications like semaglutide, have opened a medically effective, non-surgical path to significant weight loss for many older adults. Most bariatric specialists today now consider these drugs a mandatory first step before recommending surgery to any patient over 70. Surgery number 6, elective joint replacement in frail patients. Hip and knee replacements have genuinely transformed millions of lives. For the right patient, they are among the most successful elective surgeries in modern medicine, with high satisfaction rates and remarkable functional outcomes. But there is one word that changes everything about this surgery for patients over 70: frailty. And this is where the conversation gets complicated, because frailty has nothing to do with your birth year. A biological 71-year-old who exercises, eats well, has good grip strength, and no major coexisting conditions may be an excellent surgical candidate. Meanwhile, a 70-year-old who is sedentary, nutritionally depleted, and managing 5 chronic conditions is a fundamentally different physiological patient, even if they're a year younger. For frail patients over 70, the risk profile of joint replacement surgery changes dramatically. Post-operative delirium affects up to 35% of frail elderly surgical patients, and in a meaningful percentage, it does not fully resolve, leaving lasting cognitive changes as a permanent consequence of an elective surgery. Prosthetic joint infection, always a serious complication, becomes potentially life-threatening in patients with compromised immune function. Pulmonary embolism risk rises sharply in elderly patients with reduced cardiovascular reserve. And perhaps most critically, failure to rehabilitate. If a patient cannot complete the demanding post-surgical physical therapy that joint replacement requires due to weakness, pain sensitivity, or early cognitive decline, the new joint may never deliver the mobility improvement that justified the surgery in the first place. A technically perfect operation, a patient who never recovers.
The solution is not to avoid joint replacement. It is to demand a formal frailty assessment before any elective joint surgery is scheduled. Many leading orthopedic centers now require it. If yours doesn't offer it, ask directly, has anyone evaluated my frailty score? And if not, why not? What to do instead? The empowerment section. Every surgery on this list has saved lives. Every surgeon who recommends them is, in most cases, acting with genuine medical intent. But medicine is not one size fits all, and at 70 and beyond, your body has a completely different relationship with surgery, anesthesia, recovery, and rehabilitation than it did at 50. That difference is not a weakness, it is a fact, and knowing that fact gives you power. Here are the 5 most important things every patient over 70 should do before agreeing to any major elective surgery. 1. Demand a formal frailty assessment. Many hospitals now have dedicated geriatric surgical programs. A validated frailty score gives you and your surgeon objective biological data, not just assumptions based on your age. 2. Always ask for non-surgical alternatives first. In recent years, the gap between surgical and non-surgical outcomes has narrowed dramatically for many conditions. Ask point blank, what is the best non-surgical management for my condition, and why does surgery outperform it for me specifically? 3. Get a second opinion, always. This is not disrespectful. It is standard medical practice, and every ethical surgeon will support it without hesitation. 4. Bring a trusted person to every consultation. 2 sets of ears catch twice as much information. 4 ears retain more than 2. And having someone who loves you in that room changes the dynamic of every conversation. 5. Request a pre-surgical anesthesia consultation separately. Your anesthesiologist carries specific expertise about your surgical risk that is distinct from your surgeon's opinion. Meet with them, ask your own questions. They are your most important advocate once the operating room doors close. Let's be absolutely clear about something before you close this video. This is not a message of fear. This is not an argument against medicine, against surgery, or against the physicians who dedicate their lives to helping people heal. This is a message about informed consent. Real, genuine, fully informed consent. The kind that only happens when a patient over 70 walks into a consultation room knowing which questions to ask, knowing what the data actually says, and knowing that their voice in that conversation carries the same weight as the doctor's credentials on the wall. Every signature on a surgical consent form should follow a real conversation, not just a recommendation. Know your frailty score. Explore every alternative, demand a second opinion, and never, ever accept a surgery because it was simply the next thing on the referral list. If this video gave you something valuable today, please share it. Share it with your parents. Share it with your friends. Share it with anyone in your life who is facing a diagnosis, holding a referral, or sitting in a waiting room right now, wondering whether they have the right to ask harder questions. They do. You do. Like this video, share it widely, and subscribe for honest, research-based health information every single week. We'll see you in the next one.